Welcome to another episode of the Mind Deck Books podcast. Tonight is the long-awaited return of the beloved and unbeloved Paul.
Unbeloved?
Some people hate you, man. Some people told me they hate you.
I don't believe that.
Some people love you, though. It's like a very polarizing presence you have.
I have...
People told me you're the best guest. Many people told me you're the best guest because you're the best voice and you don't talk about nonsense and you don't drag the podcast for 5 hours straight and you just get to the point and you say what you think and they love it and it's amazing. But then you talked about the Endless Game and it pissed my best friend off so hard that he never listens to the podcast anymore.
Oh, wow. I thought on the... there's a YouTube comment that I'm kind of like the voice of the people.
Yeah, we got some comments about the Endless Saga, that it's one of the shittiest things ever.
Seems like quite a polarizing book, I guess. I didn't know.
Yeah, I still love it. I'm still hoping that one day you'll read the next one. You already did 2, so you might as well.
I didn't hate it, I just thought it was dull, that's all.
I love it so much. I always stand by it. I think it's very clever. And somebody messaged us a very long comment that it's overrated and he doesn't see the appeal and Paul was right and everybody should listen to Paul.
Voice of the people, yes.
So I'm very excited to have you back. It's been a long time. We've been killed by Brandon Sanderson and then killed by June, which you didn't want to take part of any of that, like at all. To quote you, you said that you'll come back when the cocaine June worm ride ends. So that happened. So welcome back.
Yeah, you wrote it as hard as you could.
So how have you been? Any reading, literary news or any other news from your life?
No. I've just been stuck out in the...
This is where you promote your coffee.
Yeah, we're launching a food truck, or kitchen car, as they call it here. And if you check out my YouTube channel, J Vlog, you can see we've had some setback, but things are progressing. Hopefully it will be up and running in a few weeks.
I'm very excited.
But just the bureaucracy and ridiculous things you have to go through.
The videos on YouTube are really interesting. I didn't know that there are so many problems you have with Japanese law and how to make a car work to have it be a coffee sales place.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so also for people who don't know, you had a YouTube channel called Not a J-Vlog. Because everybody has a J-Vlog. And now you have a J-Vlog, which is a joke that you wouldn't get unless you had the previous channel as well.
But every time I mention it to my foreign friends here, they're like, a what? I'm like, a J-Vlog. I was like...
Is it like retro now to have a vlog?
Yeah, it's weird.
Is that where we've come?
The other weird thing, I saw a statistic the other day, like Japan's like the lowest, only 10% of Japanese people listen to podcasts. It's really, I've mentioned like a few times that I've done a podcast with you, and I've had students like, what's a podcast?
That's strange. I had students listen like podcasts. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's really unpopular here too. So
I always recommended like English learning podcasts, and when people tried it, they started kind of listening. But yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, but yeah, so vlogs maybe kind of out of fashion, podcasts are non-existent, and I need to find something else. So.
Okay.
Onto TikTok.
So to get to the point, speaking of Japan, today we're talking about a long-planned book we always wanted to read together. A Japanese thriller, mystery, crime thriller by Keigo Higashino called The Devotion of Suspect X. So this is a book that has only 298 pages and it came out in 2006. And it's one of the most highly renowned detective stories in Asia, apparently, or at least the writer is.
Yeah, it's really popular. Yeah,
super popular. And I have so many things to talk about. So I want to speak a little bit because I don't want to take over. So how do you like this book? Why did you read it? Tell us about it.
It's my wife's favorite book actually, and I found it in the an outlet section of a bookshop in English for 500 yen. I said, will you buy this for me? And she said, sure. So
that's a surprise. I thought it would be more expensive since it's so famous.
No. Yeah, but it was in English and obviously no one's picking it up.
I've heard of this before I came to Japan. I know this book cover and I know there's another book called Melis that he wrote. I've seen that book cover. It's also by him.
Yeah, so she bought it for me and then it just sat on the shelf for 3 months before I finally decided work is so dead. I got nothing to do, so I decided to start reading it.
So do you usually read detective stories?
No, I don't anymore. I mentioned before I used to read but I read them when I was a kid, like Silence of the Lambs and Manhunter and stuff. Too impressionable to reading that stuff. So no, I'm not generally into detective stories.
Me neither. Yeah, I never read them.
And this one kind of really flipped things on the head, if you know what I mean. It wasn't
exactly.
It wasn't like a whodunit.
Yes, it's a very much flipped whodunit.
In the first chapter, you know whodunit kind of thing. But yeah, we'll get to that.
I love it.
Yeah. I was completely blown away by it, actually. I have a simple question: yes or no? Did you see the ending coming?
No. Not at all.
Yeah, me neither. No. It's completely misdirection, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the point of the story. So it's very clever. I really like it. And I have to say that it was one of those books that hooks you and you just read it. I read it in a week. It was very easy to read.
Yeah, it's really easy.
Breeze.
Yeah, it's easy. It's fun. There's nothing in depth about it. It's just a really clever, well-constructed story.
It's like borderline depth. Like there are some faults I liked.
Okay, sure.
It has some depth to it.
No, I'm meaning in terms of like accessibility. I mean, it's not something philosophical or
that's
other stuff you've been reading compared to that recently.
It's kind of getting into the philosophical a little bit, but very technically and very understandably, so I appreciate that.
Well, the author was an engineer. He's quite famous for that, so he kind of constructed a story, basically.
It was very well devised, very well planned, the story. I really enjoyed it. So I guess we can say straight head to head, like if you're into detective stories, definitely recommend it.
Definitely.
And I guess in my case, like the best detective story I've read, because I don't read any, but it doesn't say much, but I still liked it a lot.
As I said, I think I read a lot when I was a teenager, and it's not the typical whodunit. So yeah, if you're not really into detective stories, you probably enjoy this. I think because there's no way you're guessing the ending. I think.
So I have lots of notes, and I have 3 points I need to talk about. I'm very interested what you think. And the first is super dumb. I'm gonna say something extremely stupid, and that is that the book felt very Japanese.
Oh, it's a very true reflection of Japan, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. And I started reading it, and I was thinking, I will hate it if they don't include the neighbors. Because in Japan, you can hear the neighbors constantly, and all the walls are paper thin, and you can constantly hear everybody.
Not in my house.
So not in Paul's house, because Paul is the only insulated house in the entire Japan. But you can constantly hear everybody. I always joke that it's impossible to have sex in Japan because everybody can constantly hear everything. Unless you are super confident about it, you just don't do it.
As I mentioned, I've been living kind of in the countryside while I'm kind of finishing this house here, and I noticed like how noisy the house is.
Yes,
it's about the same age as this house, and it's like, my marriage has now become sexless.
That's why love hotels are a big thing in Japan. But anyway, I digress. So the point is, I was excited and I was very, very much interested how the neighbors will be involved. And if the neighbors were not involved and ignored, I would be very angry. And immediately the nosy neighbors come into place. So I was very happy about that.
Okay.
That was something that didn't disappoint. And the second point I want to talk about is somehow the mystery genre and detectives is a huge obsession in Japan, in my opinion. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like every single reader in Japan loves mysteries?
Yeah, it's a number one genre here, definitely. Every student I've ever asked, it's always mysteries number one. Yeah,
this is so strange. We have both been teachers in Japan, and we have taught so many people, and every single time, do you like reading? Yes. What do you read? Mystery.
You read, yeah. It's very rarely you meet someone who likes science fiction or horror or something like that. So.
It happens, but that person also reads mystery.
Yes.
Do you have any theory on why this could be? I never understood.
It's immature.
Okay.
I read it. I said I was into it when I was a teenager. I grew up, and it's like, all right, well, I honestly don't know. Seriously.
Detectives are like a giant deal in Japan. There is like Conan the Detective, which is an animated show that has millions of episodes and movies and everything, and merch. It goes so far as to Oshiri Tante, I should not talk about, and all that stuff. But what I want to say is I started looking into Mr. Keigo Higashino, the writer of this book, and I looked up some prizes that are awarded in Japan for literature.
It's a mystery prize.
It's so funny. So first of all, Mr. Higashino was appointed the president of Mystery Writers of Japan, starting 2009 to 2013. What does it even mean to be the president of Mystery Writers? What is that? Why do they have a president of Mystery Writers? So funny. So then he won the Honkaku Mystery Award, and he also won the prize that's called Kono Mystery ga Sugoi.
What's that?
It literally translates to "This mystery is so cool," which is hilarious.
Wow. I thought there's another famous prize. There's a Japanese writer whose name is a parody of Edgar Allan Poe. Do you know him?
I don't know.
His name. I thought he won that prize as well. It's Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I haven't read anything by him.
He has a famous award in Japan. I thought this writer actually won one of his prizes as well.
He's won so many.
Yeah.
It's so popular. Supposedly, he's the most read novelist in China.
Oh, okay.
Which surprised me. So I don't really know if Chinese readers are also like 99% mystery genre, but
maybe.
Possibly.
I think it's kind of weird in Japan how there's obsession with like detective dramas on TV and detective stories and stuff. Maybe it's because the reality, like police here are so shit at their job that it's just pure fantasy. I have no idea.
So the last point I want to quickly talk about is why don't we read detective stories? Like, what's your reason?
I think I grew up watching stuff. I grew up reading a lot of it. There's a writer I read a lot when I was younger. He was a former jockey, and he would always it'd be like a murder mystery kind of story, and of course the jockey in the story would always end up solving the case. And the jockey was taller than he was actually for other jockeys, kind of thing. Forgot his name, but he won a lot of prizes as well. No, I think I just I read a lot and kind of grew out of it. So it's kind of very formulaic. So
I guess that's one aspect of it. I dislike it for the like you always get to resolve a mystery, and the mystery is mostly about who's like a giant dick and how they cheated people. And I don't think it's very interesting. And if anything, it usually makes me mad how you can cheat the system and get away with something horrible. And then I can start thinking about how many people like try to do that and how many like awful things happen around me I don't see, and it makes me very uncomfortable. So it always does two things for me. Like I feel bad about it because I imagine it happens all the time, and secondly I feel very underwhelmed because there isn't anything exciting for me in the story. Because the only thing I can learn is how the mystery, like who did what, how they hid it, and how did they arrange it so they can get away with it. And I'm like, okay, but that's not why I read books, I guess.
No, it's interesting because recently I've been watching a lot of true crime stories on TikTok, and but most true crime, the criminals, 99% of the time, they're fucking morons. they don't get away with it. That's the entertaining part of it. But no one's gonna write a story about a criminal who was so fucking stupid.
Maybe we should start. We should write that book.
We should, and end very quickly. But it's usually just it's funny. I find it just amusing how these idiots think of these
that make me feel better and more reassured that these things don't happen as much around.
No, it's just pure fantasy, I think. Actually, 99% of criminals are just idiots. So.
But anyway, this book kind of flipped it. I really enjoyed it. I think it was the most enjoyable thriller mystery kind of. So I get the appeal. I get why people read it, because it's very easy to just focus on something else and really get into the story. And there isn't anything quote-unquote nonsense. Like the reason I always say why people don't read the books I like is the like sci-fi trash nonsense. Like there's always something completely unbelievable that people can't get over, like unfolding dimensions or traveling into alien space and traveling back in time, and I don't even know. So that's why people think the books are kind of nerdy and nonsense. So probably also the reason why the detective stories are never looked at like that, never looked down upon, because it's all realistic. It can all happen. There's nothing far-fetched. It can all be, it's just in your head, so you can plan things as much as you want.
Yeah.
It's never ridiculous, because you can explain it in a way that the person is like clever enough to plan it that way. So that kind of allows for the like mainstream audience to be okay with reading this and not look at it like something ridiculous. So a little more about Keigo Higashino. He is 66 now, and he's written so many books, and he is so handsome. Have you seen him?
I saw a picture of him a few months ago when I was checking out the book, but no, it doesn't stick in my mind.
I feel like he's the ideal like Japanese man. Like the ideal of a Japanese like idol who's not a group like singer idol. He looks clever, he looks nice, I think women must love him, and that's why they read his book so much.
I'll have a look at him. No, he pops the collar too. So,
Yep.
Well, it kind of just looks like a regular kind of Japanese man to me. But anyway,
I think that's what people want in Japan.
okay, I see.
I would be curious if he won some kind of like best looking person of the year or something like that. If they had that in Japan, as if I ever did that in Japan, they would never. But if they did, I feel like he would win. Like when he was in his birthdays or something, I think he would win the prize.
Best looking author. All right.
So one thing I want to quickly mention is the series. So this is the third book in the Detective Galileo series that has 10 books already. And this one is the one that blew up and made him internationally famous. The other books are not as popular, and some of them don't even have translations. Detective Galileo appears in this book, but it's not the main character.
No.
Which is the only part I didn't like about the book. I think that Detective Galileo is so rude, like in this story. Did you like the character?
No, I didn't really have any strong feelings about him, actually. I just thought, it's just a cop.
He was exactly what I was like thinking he would be, because there is a cop that's kind of like a normal cop, and then in the story there is this like side character who the whole time was, who is this Galileo guy? Like, and then they finally said it at one point, and of course he knows everything and he never says it, and it's infuriating. I hate him when he comes over. He's like, I know the solution, but I'm not gonna tell it.
But you're talking about the professor.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, he's called Galileo. Yes.
Yeah.
So he's not a cop. He's just assisting a police.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a big thing. In the movie, the cop is actually changed to a female character, and the detective is played by quite a famous actor, singer that's quite popular in Japan, actually.
Oh, I see.
So my wife mentioned that there's only 2 movies that was based on a book that she wasn't disappointed by, and this was one of them. She said the movie's actually quite good.
I'd watch it. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe when I learn a little bit more Japanese, I can try it in Japanese, because I know what happens, so it's easier.
Yeah. So on the professor character, he's smug.
I hated him.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for him to do what he's doing other than to be smug.
Yeah. He's just showing off, I guess.
Too much.
Yeah, but it kind of works because he discovers that the main suspect is an actual old classmate that he actually quite respects. So
yeah. I don't hate him as in I hate the story because he's in it, but I hate him as the character because I would hate to meet him.
Yeah, he makes you feel.
Yeah. And very condescending.
I don't mind he's condescending to the cop. He's not condescending to his friend.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a bit condescending to the female character. The only character I had strong feelings about was actually the woman at the end. But anyway.
We'll talk about it. I have also some questions about that.
Sure.
Before we move on to the story, do you know how it goes with the Detective Galileo series? If they have the same character like on the side every time, like in this one, or is it the main like focus, or is it the same person in the whole series? Do you know?
I honestly have no idea. I guess it is
okay.
because I think that they've made a few TV series or movies that uses the same actor, so I'm assuming it's the same character.
Right. So, like we said, we definitely recommend it. There is a translation by O. Smith and Ellie J. Alexander. I listened to the audiobook, which was pretty cool. Did you listen or read?
Yeah, I read it on paper.
Oh, wow.
I mentioned my wife.
You did, but you sometimes you have the book, but you listen anyway, so I assumed that.
I had time. It was nice to actually read a paper book.
I immediately assumed that you looked at it on the shelf and listened. That's how I imagine you reading.
No. My wife would be pissed that she actually bought the book to me. No, it was an easy read, so I didn't mind reading it on paper.
It's not long and it's very easy to read. Okay, so if you're by any means interested in thrillers, mysteries, detective stories, and you want to read something different, we highly recommend it. I think it's a very easy book to get into and very different kind of detective story, which I was surprised by. And has something to say and has some interesting ideas. So even though I don't read these things, I would really recommend it. So get out of here and listen after you've read it. Is what I'd say. So let's talk about the story. I have some questions and some plot points and stuff. I'm not sure how much in depth you want to talk about the plot, but
it depends. Let's just talk about it.
Let's try to do it longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Not like the Golden Sun. I still feel bad about it. Not Golden Sun, the Irish space.
Red Rising.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Not like the Red Rising. So the story starts with the murder, basically, we already mentioned.
Yeah, it starts off with murder, but it starts off telling you who did the murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was an ex-husband, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
it shows up at this woman's house and apartment, and he's found them, and I think the daughter ends up helping the mother to strangle him with a power cord or something.
Which was so funny to me because I don't remember names. I have a giant issue with this, and I never remember the names. And I started reading this, I read the first chapter, and I think by that point I haven't mentioned the murder yet. And I looked up on Wikipedia, and I was like, okay, this is Tetsuya and Yasuko. And then
Yasuko, yes.
then there was like, oh, Togashi is the husband who gets murdered by the daughter. And I was like, damn it! I just spoiled myself immediately.
Yeah, but I mean, this was the thing that, like, when I was reading the story, and there's a sort of that cat and mouse game between the detective and the wife, and it's like, I'm like reading, I'm like, we know who done it. It's the wife.
Exactly.
And the daughter.
So
They killed it. What's the mystery here?
Exactly. And it was very funny to me because I spoiled myself for like one page, because the very next chapter I started reading, they revealed the same thing. I was like, oh, never mind. I didn't spoil myself.
Yeah, it's straight off the bat. It's like, this arsehole husband shows up and gets knocked off. Yeah.
So Yasuko Hanaoka is a single mother with a daughter called Misato, and her ex-husband, Mr. Togashi, he is kind of a stalker, or he just follows her around because she used to work at a nightclub, and they never explain what kind of nightclub.
No, it's just a hostess bar.
So yeah, not the nightclub we think about in English, but the kind of Japanese hostess bar.
Yeah, it's just women.
So different than what you're imagining right now, listeners.
Pour your drinks and talk to you. Yeah, you pay women to talk to you. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because you don't want to talk to your wife. It's true.
Unfortunately, yes.
Fortunately. Anyway.
So Togashi is just following her around, and he goes to...
Well, he tracks her down, I want to say.
He finds her because...
No, so he tracks her down because he wants money and wants to get back in with her, kind of thing. She formerly quit her job as a hostess, and she was working in like a bento shop.
Exactly. So he learns that from the nightclub, so they tell him. And,
what she's doing
for
now.
Those who are absolutely untouched by Japan, bento is a lunchbox, just to explain. Paul is like rolling his eyes super hard now.
You can get on Amazon America bento recipe cookbook.
I kid you not, before I came here I didn't know what bento meant. So he gets to the bento shop, and then he just tries to talk to her, and she wants to get rid of him. And the only thing they can both agree on is that she would meet him at a family restaurant.
Yeah.
So they meet there after work, and she tells him that everything's over, get out of my life, I don't want to talk to you anymore, and he is just relentless. So after she gets home, he follows her, and he gets into her apartment, and an argument starts.
Yeah, the daughter hates him as well.
The daughter hates him as well. People start shouting. She tries to pay him off to leave. She tries to give him money.
He takes the money.
Yeah, he takes it because he's an
idiot.
idiot.
He doesn't want to leave it. Yeah. And I'll be back.
He just makes a mess, starts smoking in the place and everything, which is like a huge deal in Japan. If you smoked into somebody's apartment, God forbid.
Not 20 years ago. That was fun.
I see. So then the daughter gets upset, and when Togashi is really loud and really aggressive, she whacks him on the back of his head.
That's right.
With something. What was it?
I don't know. I don't remember. No.
She picked up something like a vase or I don't know. So he falls down, and the mother Hanako is really distraught, and she grabs a wire, like a cord from a kotatsu. Kotatsu is a table that warms you up. So he's gonna be rolling his eyes at me all the time because
just say a power cord. You don't have to go. Oh.
It's very Japanese. People told me that kotatsu destroys families, and it happened again. I remember this was one of the first things I learned in a Japanese class.
This book, literally.
Yeah, this happened literally in this story.
Yeah, so it's a good tag team, like strangling with the kotatsu cord, and he's trying to like grab at the cord with his hands and stuff like this. And
so the daughter helps the mother to hold his hands, his arms,
while
the mother chokes him
right.
and kills him.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I was very excited about this element. Tag team murder, perfect.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, that's the first chapter. Where's this gonna go?
Yeah, it was very surprising. So just to finish my mention, kotatsu is a table that's on the floor and you slide under it to warm up because it's like a heater. And it destroys families because the family usually wants to save money. Like the father wouldn't switch on the heater. And the only place to warm up during the winter in a frozen Japanese house, which is frozen, believe me. Russians who come in Japan tell me that it's colder in Japan than in Russia. And then people just fight over who can be in the kotatsu. They fight so hard that they just break up the whole family. So that's what the students tell me in Japanese lessons.
Yeah, I know how to get rid of my wife now. Okay.
Do you have a kotatsu?
No, of course not.
I kind of don't like it because it overheats your legs and your back is frozen.
I don't sit on the floor like a peasant.
Well, some of the kotatsus, to be fair, is the only comfortable place to be in Japan on the floor because they have a...
No, sunken floor. Yeah, sunken floor.
like a sunken floor. So your legs are actually like if you were on a chair, but you're on the floor. It's pretty cool. I like it. But if you're in a winter in a frozen house and this is the only source of heat, your back is freezing and you're sweating on your front, like on your belly. I don't get it.
Get it like a, what's those wearable blankets called? Snuggie or something?
Yeah, so that's Snuggie kotatsu, yeah.
Snuggies are better than kotatsu.
So there is a neighbor in the story. Finally, immediately I was happy. The book made me very happy because first it was very straightforward and then they flipped it on its head with this whodunit, like inverse. And then immediately neighbors come in because of course they can hear every single thing. I was surprised only one neighbor heard it. I was expecting everybody in the house to be involved somehow.
Yeah.
So Mr. Ishigami. Ishigami. So he's a math teacher and he calls her or just walks and comes over. And he calls first. He calls her from the other apartment. And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't acknowledge anything, but he knows everything. And he tries to suggest that he'll help her, dispose of the body and help hide the murder.
Yeah, basically he hints that, do you need assistance? I can help. And it's revealed through the story. He basically, this guy's a genius.
Yeah.
So he basically knows what's going on. And he's a regular customer at the bento shop every morning as well, because he has a thing for the mother.
Everybody's got a thing for the mother. Like, everybody. This lady is to be so hot, I can't deal with it. Like, every single man in this story is all over her.
I checked her on the movie, and I was very disappointed. It's like, really? You go that far for her? Come on, man. Maybe my standards are too high. Alright. So.
How old is the daughter, by the way?
I think she's
like in high school, maybe?
Yeah, junior high school, something like that. She's quite young, yeah.
So he talks to her. She's very, very, very stressed and super anxious and doesn't know what to do. This is the whole story. The main character, like Yasuko Hanaoka, she doesn't do very much for herself. She just like kind of goes with the flow. And at first I was thinking, of course, she's like a single mother, she just wants to get out of trouble, blah, blah, blah. But she just murdered a guy, and then all kinds of bad stuff happens and escalates, and she never protests to any of it. She just, like, sits there and watches it.
Well, because the math teacher, what his name? Ishigami. Yeah. He tells them very directly that I will help you, but just let me take care of it and do exactly what I say, kind of thing. Follow my orders.
She thinks about it for a little bit, but then she's like, okay, thank you. Like, you know what I mean? She's never really involved, and she's never protested to any horrible thing he's done, and she just peacefully agrees and goes along with every single thing that happens around her. And I started feeling like, is she the evil character in this story? Like, is she really a bad person? Did you feel like that?
At the end, yes.
Yes, at the end, very much. And throughout the story, I felt worse and worse about her because she never did anything that was right, ever. I felt very bad about her. I don't know why.
Okay, throughout the story, I was kind of neutral on her until the end. But yeah.
Because at the very beginning, she had some doubts and she had some protests and she wasn't sure if she should do any of this. And then once she decided, everything goes. Anything goes, everything goes. I just all in.
Yeah, I think because once she decided on his assistance, I think he was very clear that, like, just do as I say. I'll come up with a plan, and you have to follow exactly. But she's kind of accumulates at the end my feelings about her. But anyway,
yeah, that's true. So Ishigami basically does everything, and he makes up a perfect story and alibi and everything. He gets rid of the body. He does everything, and she just waits there. And he makes up a perfect way to just hide the murder and the point of the mystery is to find out what he actually did.
Yeah.
And that's slowly revealed throughout the book. And there is this pair of detectives. One of them is called Kusanagi, Shunpei Kusanagi, who is the main detective investigating the murder. He's got an assistant who does nothing. I don't even know his name. They always mention him, like, Kusanagi is like asking witnesses and going all over the place and investigating. And then he got this assistant who just goes somewhere and does nothing. I don't even know why he was in the story.
Japanese culture,
I guess. And then he has a friend called Manabu Yukawa, who is the Galileo detective.
yes, but he's not a detective.
But he's not a detective. He's
he?
not a policeman. He's just a physics professor.
Mm.
And I don't get this character. Like, this was the only unrealistic part for me. Like, okay, he's super clever. I get it. Okay, he's got a friend. Like, I think he's like a college schoolmate of Kusanagi or something. Is that right?
Shigami.
Oh, Shigami. I think both. All of them were in the same class.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly the friendship of
Definitely,
detective
Yukawa and the physics professor is Ishigami's schoolmate, the neighbor.
Yeah, but the detective doesn't know him.
Detective, okay.
It's a different class or something.
Okay. So Yukawa is a physics, like a very practical, focused, like a person, and Ishigami is a very theoretical, like math, high concept. They call him the Buddha because he loves solving problems.
Yeah, he's got like this stoned face as well. Like I don't mean like
like a stoic expression, no emotions.
No emotions. Yeah.
So Yukawa learns from Kusanagi that the murder happened, and somehow it comes up that Ishigami is living in the same apartment, and he is like, yeah, my best old friend, I want to see him, so he goes to visit, and he's so nosy. Like, Yukawa is such a bastard.
I think it's just his personality of he's just curious about everything.
And this is the appeal. Like, I think this is the famous character of all these detective stories. This is like the Detective Colombo. I forgot one more thing, and
just something I can't work out. You know?
Yeah, exactly. He's got all the like stereotypical, not phrases, but kind of the. I was imagining like a TV show from the 90s, like a detective like going somewhere and being all snarky about stuff. And he has no point in any of this. Like, why is he allowed by Kusanagi to have so much information and know everything, and also deny Kusanagi information about the murder? Is beyond me. I get their friends.
It's like what was that book, that TV drama, A Murder She Wrote? Just a novelist going around solving it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's part of the genre. It's just, a fucking former jockey solving murders, or a writer solving murders, or it's very rarely an actual detective solving murders.
This is the only problem I have with the whole story and the whole book. If Yukawa wasn't such a bastard and he was more realistic and he didn't do all this stereotypical detective nonsense, while not being a detective, by the way, which is also like infuriating to me, then it would have been probably like the perfect murder mystery book for me if this guy was a little bit different. But anyway, he comes to visit his friend and he brings him a math problem. And his friend Ishigami keeps solving it for 6 hours while the other guy falls asleep and he completely ignores him, which was hilarious.
Well, he's drunk. Yeah. So.
They drink together and then he's like, oh, he's a problem. And Ishigami's like, yeah, let me look at it. 6 hours later, my friend's been sleeping on the floor here.
But I think he brought him the math problem because basically Ishigami, that's his only pleasure, I think. These kind of questions.
True, but a little bit weird that he completely ignored his best friend after they met for like a nice evening after I don't know how many years.
But that was their thing, I guess. He's a physics thing and he was a math thing. This is, their jam.
So they reconnect and then they meet again after a while, but of course the murder comes up and Yukawa starts to be all nosy and he always figures something out while Kusanagi figures nothing out.
Basically. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of game between the two, I guess. But I always felt like Yukawa was sort of, I think he was concerned that, he said at one stage that I'm concerned my friend has done something terrible. But it wasn't what we were thinking.
Yes, which was clever. I really like that part.
It was, yeah. He was even one step ahead of us reading the book. It was like, oh wow, okay.
The tagline says that it's the battle of the greatest minds of the history or something, and they like try to one up each other, Ishigami and Yukawa. But Kusanagi is not a great mind at all. He figures out nothing.
He's a cop.
It's being bad for him. It's like hopeless. He does nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is also somebody called Kubo, I think.
Kubo. Was it Kubo? Yeah, the kind of a former patron of the hostess bar.
So he's also into Hanako. Of course, everybody's into her so much. So he also kind of stalks her.
He doesn't stalk her. I don't.
Yeah, kind of.
Well,
kind
how?
of.
He shows up as a former concerned customer, but she was always quite fond of him, so I don't think you can call this stalking.
They never mentioned that much that she was fond of him, but it
No,
kind of.
she does.
Well, later, but at first they never say it, so I guess.
Well,
yeah,
they're all excited when he shows up at the shop. It's clear that they have a fondness for him.
Yeah. But it's a little bit strange, and he does admit it in his interrogation that the reason he came back was that he found out that her ex-husband was murdered, so that's why he came back running for her, so she wouldn't be alone, and she's now free of her ex-husband and all this. So it's a little bit stalkerish.
I don't think
and
so.
He also didn't know where she lived, so he found out through the club and everything like the other guys.
But I think he did it. I don't think he had any sinister motive.
He didn't, but
at all.
he was...
No, not at all.
Yeah, the other guy also, from his point of view, didn't have any sinister motives, and he did all that.
Well, yeah. All right. I think Kubo was an alright guy.
Kubo is a normal guy, yeah. So he starts dating her, and Ishigami told her to basically do everything as normal as possible, and that he will take care of everything. And immediately, obviously, he gets super upset and jealous because she spends time with Kubo and not with him.
Yeah, but does he really? Do you think that was genuine?
Yeah, I think it was genuine. You don't?
No. I think it's about because it's kind of revealed at the end that he was... No, I think he was just... The jealousy was, again, a misdirection.
Really?
Well, yeah, well, a little bit. He was, but he kind of used it to his advantage.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So he was using it to say, oh, like, yeah, I'm jealous of him, and I'm kind of, again, turning the cops towards something else. He did have some jealous feelings, but he knew that, because at the end he reveals that he says Kubo's a good man and you should marry him.
Well, that's when he switched his priorities. But before that, he even wrote a letter to threaten her to leave him alone and to be with him instead.
I think that was his misdirection.
Really?
Yes. This guy's a genius. He's not.
Yeah,
he's not.
But at one point, I was very disappointed in him because he said, and that was him thinking it to himself and not telling anybody at all.
Yeah.
And he said, I have never seen anybody more beautiful in my life, and I wish I could spend at least a minute with her alone or something like that. And I was like, damn it, everybody has to just be all over this woman.
Yeah. But I think it's just, we all had these moments of emotion, but I think he's called the Buddha because he's just very emotionless.
I think it's like switched. Like he dealt with his emotions, but at first he was so into her as well, and he found the whole motivation.
Yeah. But I mean, how many times in my life have I said "you stupid bitch" in my mind? But do I really mean it? No, of course not. But if I was writing a book, maybe Paul said, "Oh yeah,
all
right."
Okay, I get that part. But the whole motivation for him to do all he's done is for her. That's because he loves her so hard.
Yeah, but it's revealed at the end it's not that kind of love.
It's not, but it's the whole motivation. What he's doing is because he wants to be with her.
No,
and he thought he could never be with her, and he even says that. So at the second half of the book is true what you're saying, but first he's so into her.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is this is real clever misdirection because we're thinking, okay, this guy's jealous, obsessed, but the second half it's like, oh no, actually it's not that at all. It's something completely different.
Also misdirection to the reader, which worked on me.
Yes, yeah, completely.
Also at one point the professor, the physics professor, what is it, Yukawa?
Yes, Yukawa.
So one of the first clues why he starts to be suspicious of Ishigami is that Ishigami says when they're together, how their hairlines have receded, and that Yukawa has nice hair and his hairline has receded and he doesn't have any more hair, and they compared to 10-20 years ago when they met. And then Yukawa says, oh, the Buddha, he never cared about his appearance. Why would he care about his appearance now? He must be into somebody. He must be thinking about what he looks like to be with a woman. And it was one of the first times that he considered that Ishigami could be doing something that he's not saying, because he's never been like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so then Hanako keeps dating Kubo. Kusanagi gets on Kubo's tail and he tries to interrogate him, finds nothing. Then they visit the bento shop and find nothing, and they just completely lost. And they investigate some alibi that the mother and the daughter were in the cinema, and then they went to karaoke, had some ramen, and it all
And it all works out. Yeah, it all checks out.
The 100,000% checks out.
Yeah.
And they find the body, and they find that the fingerprints were burnt off, and his face was completely smashed
in,
beyond recognition. And the clothes were burnt in a barrel, but the barrel should have burned the clothes. Like, the detective tested it, that the clothes could have burned very easily, but the clothes were burned just a little bit.
And there's also like a new stolen bicycle nearby or something like that with flat tires and stuff
with
like
fingerprints of the victim.
Yes.
So everything is like perfectly arranged, so they can close the case and say that this is the victim and somebody killed him, we don't know, and it's definitely not Anako.
And they found his hair at a hotel with his ID and stuff like that, so he must have stayed there. Yeah, this is the guy.
So then Yukawa, Galileo, the physics professor, he starts to be more and more nosy, and he just gets his fingers into everything. And Kusanagi just follows him around and begs him to tell him something, which is ridiculous. The conversations between Yukawa and Kusanagi were still funny.
Yeah.
Then they meet Ishigami and Yukawa again, so the two greatest minds, and they keep like trying to one up each other. And Yukawa has the most like Detective Columbo moment, and probably like my favorite idea of the whole book. He keeps giving him math problems, and they also give him like real math problems. I've heard before about the 4-color problem. It's like color a map, so the colors don't touch and stuff like that. And then there is the other problem they keep talking about, which is the NP something problem. I don't know what it's called exactly.
I have no idea.
Basically, it means, is it more difficult to devise a complicated problem or to solve the problem?
Oh, okay. Let's see what you can. Yeah, I remember. But yeah, it was just sort of like a metaphor of this crime situation.
So, what's harder, devising an unsolvable problem or solving the problem? And they keep talking about this, and they keep getting into this philosophy of designing puzzles and designing tests and designing questions. And because Ishigami is a math teacher, he has to design math tests, and the students hate him and they hate the math class, and he talks to them, and I like that part. Very bored by this. The class. You look like that.
Yeah, basically.
It was my favorite part.
Yeah, I thought so.
He said that the easiest way to see if the person understands the problem is to misdirect them by designing a very easy problem, but misdirecting you to thinking it's a different problem.
Yeah, he's describing basically what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. Which was very obvious in the story.
I didn't even pick up on it. I was just like, and he's just complaining about his job. The stupid students don't understand what he's talking about. Yeah, it all clicks together at the end.
The writing is very clever because it's super obvious that he's clearly talking about the murder, what he did with the murder. Exactly. But you have no idea how, and it's like the hook, like how you want to read the story. So I think that's very clever from the writer.
Yeah.
So what he says is that if you, for example, have an algebra problem, but you disguise it as a geometry problem, so when the students try to look at it as a geometry problem, they get completely stuck and they don't even consider that it could be an algebra problem. So that's basically what he does with the murder. He sets up a very clear path for them to look at and to follow, and he completely misdirects them, because if they looked at it as a different problem, then they would immediately solve it, but they don't do that because he's laid the path and he's made it look like this kind of murder 100%. And they have this conversation with Galileo, like Yukawa, and they keep talking about, is it easier to solve the problem or to make the problem? And then he says, has the most detective moment with the Galileo Yukawa, and he says, all you have to do is respect the creator of the problem. And then at that point, you know that Ishigami is fucked. He got him.
Yeah.
So he knows at that point he did it, but he doesn't know how.
Yeah. There's also a part I remember he was like, Yukawa was like checking newspapers for about murders in other places or something.
Exactly.
And the detective's like, why is he doing that? And it's like, it's like so many steps ahead of you.
Poor Kusanagi runs behind him and he's like, what is this?
And then he's like, I feared my friend's done a terrible thing. And you're thinking, well, he's just covered up a murder? All right.
So the physics teacher, Yukawa, he also tells Kusanagi like, oh, by the way, there are these problems, and if you look at the problems a bit different, like in physical math, you might find something else. And Kusanagi is like, what? And then they meet again, and he tells him the same thing again. Poor Kusanagi, he's such a dumb bastard. Like I can't deal with Kusanagi. He couldn't get a clue, like by any means. Like he understood nothing, like nothing.
Yeah. Nah, he's a cop.
And Yukawa keeps playing with Ishigami, and he keeps meeting him, and then he keeps like leading him by accident, quote unquote, to the bento shop to meet him and Hanako and Kubo at the same time, and everybody freaks out, and he can see all of it and read the people, and we all know that he knows, and all this. It was very dramatic. So then, yeah. Anything else before the reveal?
No, I think we've kind of covered this this game. So I think, yeah, we should just go straight into the big the dramatic twist.
Dramatic twist.
So there's a point at the beginning of the book. He mentions about how if you ever been to places like Tokyo and stuff like that, you'll see these like little blue houses, they call them blue tent houses. Usually the homeless people have set up quite ingeniously these little kind of makeshift sort of huts built with like blue sheets, especially along like rivers and stuff. You don't see them as much as you did 20, 25 years ago. But he talks about how there's this one guy who's he's new to the area, so he kind of, he hasn't established himself yet amongst the homeless people, because Ishigami walks past this river every day while going to his job. So I just thought, oh, okay, that's an interesting kind of little tidbit about Japan. I had no idea, like, oh, wait, this was actually really important.
I also missed that, but I knew it was important, but I didn't connect the two at all.
No,
and
no,
Yukawa
no.
also meets him right there and then, and he tells him, like, this whole story about being a cog in the machine, and that every cog, even though it's used and enslaved and however unimportant, they always have a role to play and always have a power to decide how they're being used and where they're being used. And he's trying to tell him that he knows what he did, and and we have no idea until the end. I didn't suspect. Yeah.
No, I just thought it was like, oh, he knows he covered it up, but
yes,
he did. But
it makes it look like he didn't know either, but he knew something. So the point he realizes is when he sees the schedule of Ishigami, and he sees that he was sick twice in a row.
Yeah, very unusual for him.
The murder happened on the 10th, but he was also sick on the 9th, and the reveal. Do you want to say it? The dramatic voice?
So, yeah, basically Ishigami had killed a homeless person and made it look like it was the husband, Togashi. And basically Togashi was chopped up in the bathtub of Ishigami's house or apartment, put in the river. And, so basically we have two murders.
So Togashi was murdered on the 9th.
Yep.
But he made it look like he was murdered on the 10th to cover it up. So he murdered the second guy to cover up the murder of the first guy.
Yes. This was why I was like, why are they going to the movie theater and stuff like this? And this alibi is checking out.
Yeah.
Well, because they went to the movie theater on the 10th. Yeah.
So he planned them to go to have all the alibi check out.
Yeah. So he killed another person to hide the murder.
And he never told Hanako, and he also made sure that she knows nothing and that she has to never lie, which was super clever, because he knew that she would probably let something slip, or even the daughter. So he set up everything so that even if they said everything about the 10th, like everything correct, everything true, they would never be suspicious.
Yes.
And they never talked about the 9th, because that's not when it happened.
No.
Which is a little bit weird, because, the police could have asked what they were doing the day before. Like, usually the investigation doesn't limit itself on the one day and the day after. So they could have checked the day before, I felt like, but okay. It's fine.
Yeah. So it's like the question of why did he do this? So Ishigami was at one stage about to kill himself or something in the apartment. He was about to hang himself.
Yeah, that was also that was also why he was so infatuated with her, because the reason he didn't kill himself was that she moved in next door.
Yeah, but it wasn't. He was just about to kill himself, and this mother and daughter showed up at his door to give him a gift, kind of a general thing when you move in.
And he said it was the most beautiful smile and the most wonderful surprise, and he wanted to make sure that her and her daughter would never be unhappy, and the most beautiful thing he's ever seen and all this. I was like, this is a little bit too much. But okay.
No, I think the way it's written, it's just like, thank you for saving me, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it was creepy at all.
I felt it was creepy, but okay.
All right. All right.
And,
yeah.
I meant to say he went to excruciating length to make everything click and cover it up so well that he like rented a fake place, and he had the homeless guy wear the dead husband's clothes, and he put the hair there, and he put the dead husband's fingerprints on the stolen bicycle, and he stole the bicycle exactly at the time it was a new bicycle, so the person would report the bicycle stolen at the same day that the murder happened, so they would confirm that they actually happened the same day as the murder. And then it got so much stuff like that. They go all over the details. It was pretty clever,
very much like an engineer.
Yeah. So he super over engineered every single inclusion detail. And when Yukawa finds out, he like plays his final trump card. And he goes to confess to the police station, and he says that he's a stalker, and he's been saying and planting and sending messages and everything doing in such a way that it turns out that even if Hanako denied it or agreed with it, whatever she says, it would still be true because he didn't actually talk with her directly at all ever. Which was like another clever way to cover it a lot.
Yeah, and I think he left her a letter or something as well, saying that you should marry Kubo, he's a good man, and don't contact me or something. Yeah. So he basically sacrificed himself completely.
Yes.
So,
and stupid Yukawa, Galileo bastard, he has to go there and he has to tell her everything.
Yeah. And then she goes and confesses.
So this is the moment where, I guess the reader realizes that she's not such a nice person at all.
Yeah, I was like, you fucking bitch.
Exactly.
He's done all this for you to protect you and your daughter, and you went and confessed because you couldn't deal with the guilt.
Yes.
And now you're going away, and your daughter's like, what's going to happen to her? Well, she's part of it as well. You cunt. I was pissed off at her. I was really pissed off.
And she thought to herself, I wrote this down, she said that enduring the guilt is the way of doing penance. And I was like, what? This is like, before she confessed, she was considering that. And I was like, this is even worse than I thought. Like this character.
Yeah.
So anyway, she comes to the police station and she can't deal with it. And Yukawa is all messed up because Ishigami is his best friend, so he doesn't want to do it. And he even tells the policeman, the detective, that if the information is released, then they will cease to be friends. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this clearly is not legal or like, I don't know, legally binding or anything. Like, what do you mean? Like, you can't say anything. He doesn't have anything to do with the police.
I think this cop is so hopeless that he's like, okay, sure. Don't leave me, please. I need you.
Guess.
All right, sure. Yeah, I'll do whatever you say.
Like, how does the guy have so much information? It was very unrealistic. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So then she comes in and she confesses, and Ishigami has the strangest, scariest, most intense howling scream ever. It was the most haunting moment in the movie, I can imagine. I would like to see that.
No, I watched the end. I found the clip on YouTube and I watched the ending of the. It's kind of a bit disappointing, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because the professor's not actually in the scene. I was like, what? He's the main.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's just her coming in and bowing down, like crying, and he's screaming, and it's just. And then these wooden cops come in and take him away. It's
what?
Like, yeah, it's shit.
That kills the main point of this book. Like, this was the emotional hit, like, at the end.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what? Yeah, and, like, Yukawa puts his hand on his chest and says he needs a moment. Let him...
What?
Yeah, I know.
It completely destroys the whole...
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The only moment where Ishigami wasn't a Buddha and they blew it.
Yeah.
Like, that was the point. That the final part, he couldn't...
Yeah, look at it. It's just, like, two people, like, crying. One's crying, one's screaming, and it's just... it's crap. So.
Well, now I'm not watching it. That sucks.
My wife said it's not disappointing, so I don't know. I'm not going to waste my time, but anyway. All right, so, yeah. She's a bitch.
So I have to say, very very impactful ending. I was very surprised about the ending. I was worried, to be honest, because I got very much into it in the beginning. It didn't lose me throughout at all. It was very well paced. I felt like it was like progressing. There were always some tidbits to think about. I liked the discussion with the classroom that lost you, but okay. And then I liked the discussions between all the detectives. And I was worried that the ending would be like a flop, but it was great.
Yeah.
So that I have to say, very much enjoyed it and very well deserved all the praise that it's getting. I wonder if it's just this book or if it's all of them in the series, like the same kind of I don't want to say impact, but
it's pretty hard to top, I think, actually.
That's true. So I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect much. That's probably also why I liked it so much. And I liked it very much.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's why it's sat on my shelf for like 3 months. It's just a detective story. And I was reading, I'm like, okay, there's a murder. All right, come on, let's just wrap this up. But it wasn't like that at all. It was just like, oh my god. Okay, the ending, totally worth it, I thought.
It's very cheesy to say, but it warms my heart when the praised classic is great.
It actually lives up to it.
The praise. When the famous thing lives up to it, I love that, and it doesn't happen so much, but it happens. So that restores my faith in humanity. I like that. Like we talk about some of these books on this podcast. Like we read the Starship Troopers. I didn't expect that much. It was a great book, and of course Dune. But then on the other hand, like Foundation, I didn't enjoy at all. It's such a classic. So it's a hit and miss with the classics.
That's true. I agree.
So thank you so much for doing this. I am glad that you're back. We've been recording only about an hour, so that's what the audience likes. Short, enjoyable book, impactful, to the point, no yabbering around.
No lore.
That's how people like it. That's why they like you.
You don't want to go into in-depth lore about the detective background or something?
No. Okay, so thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.
Bye.